Welcome back to Moody Talk Sports. We're here on a Saturday morning. We've got a full slate of college games up today, which I'll be picking the point spreads. We'll see how that goes. I had a fantastic week last week, my best week so far, by far. So we're actually very, very close to being back to 500. I'm 76, 81, and 1. So, and then that number has slowly bridged that gap throughout the week. So I've been doing great. We're going to go ahead and dive right in. Last week was my first winning week with college football because it's just been so hard to predict this year. There's so many teams who one week will show up and be the 85 Bears, and then the next week they'll show up and look like this year's Raiders. And it's incredible to me that there's so much disparity there. But it's getting a little later in the season, and I think that we're starting to see who teams really are, and that's kind of helping me a little bit. So let's go ahead and dive in. Vanderbilt going into Texas. I have Vanderbilt plus the 3.5. I haven't been impressed with Texas all year, but Vanderbilt I continue to be impressed with. They continue to win tough games. They play these nitty-gritty, low-scoring games. And look, I mean, Texas might win by a field goal, but regardless, I'm going to take those 3.5 points. I just haven't been super impressed with Texas, and now they're playing a really tough team. I think that Texas at heart might be a little better than them, but I just don't think they have it together right now like Vanderbilt does, so that's why I'm choosing them. Penn State going to Ohio State. Look, Penn State's a mess. What a disappointing season. It's tough. I get it. I'm surprised too. I had Penn State going all the way to the Natty, so I get it. I'm not winning the Natty, but going there. I understand why it's just such a strange season, but right now with the dumpster fire the way they are, an interim head coach and the team just not playing well and coming off multiple losses, I think Ohio State should have no problem winning by 21, 28. I just don't think, especially at home, playing in the shoe, I'm going to take Ohio State. They've continually won blowouts this year. Mountaineers going into Houston. I took, what did I take? Houston minus 13.5. Now it's down to 12.5, but I'll go ahead and stick with my 13.5. I would have liked that number better. I'm not sure how good West Virginia is. When it comes to Houston, it's a solid team. I've bet against them a little bit. I've bet for them a little bit, but you never know which team's going to show up with Houston. You just really don't. And I'm just going to bet being at home, they have a great game. I think they win by 17. Let's hope. Kind of one of those games I wasn't happy about having to pick. Miami minus 10.5. I do have Miami going into Southern Methodist. I just don't think Southern Methodist is that good, If you look at their schedule, who they've won against compared to who they've lost against, they haven't really played any super tough competition this year at all, and they've lost against some teams that are kind of head-scratchers. With that being said, Miami's coming off a couple games where they just haven't looked very good, and I wanted to pick against Miami. I really did, because I just haven't seen a great 2 games the last couple. I know they won 42-7 last week. That was because Stanford's quarterback got hurt. It was 7-7 at halftime. I'm not impressed. But I do think that Miami has a chance to win this game by 13-17, and so I got to take them in that regard. Louisville going to Virginia Tech. This is another game where I'm taking, Louisville minus the 10.5 because, again, Virginia Tech, you look at their schedule, who have they beaten, who have they not beaten, it's just not impressive at all. Meanwhile, Louisville has played a near flawless season. I mean, upsetting Miami. I know they had a rough game or two. That's fine. You're allowed to have those now. But they're 6-1, and I just think even on the road, I think this is easily another 13-17, maybe even 21-point game. So Louisville's offense can be dynamic at times. So I'm going to hope for that today. Next up, we have where is it? Notre Dame, Boston College. This one's an easy one for me. I'm taking Boston College plus 30.5. I did this with Boston College last week. I forget who they played, but the point spread was similar. It was like 28 points. And I said, Boston College may lose some games, but they always lose by, 14, 10, 17, 20. And it worked out great last week. I'm going to ride it again this week. I just think 30.5 is just too many points. Boston College is at home. I could easily see Notre Dame winning by 28, but that wouldn't cover it. So, yeah, I got to take the points. Indiana going into Maryland. I'm going to take Indiana minus the 20.5. I think they could win by 21 pretty easily. Maryland's not that impressive this year, and Indiana is the second best team in the nation right now, and rightfully so. They have been for me for weeks, and that's not going to change anytime soon, especially if they continue to play football the way they are. So, they won in blowout fashion last week. I think it's easy to say they could do it again this week, and so I'm going to rock and lay those points. Texas Tech going into Kansas State. I'm going to take Texas Tech minus the 7.5. Again, one of the top offenses in the country. I know Kansas State kind of can be sneaky good at times, and that's fine, but I think this is easily a 10 to 14 point minimum victory for Texas Tech. And with that being said, 7.5 isn't really a lot to lay. If it was 6.5, it would be like the bet of the week for sure. Georgia going into Florida. Now, as a Florida fan, I would love for Florida to put up a decent fight here, but they fired their head coach after last game. Georgia's playing really, really good football, and so I think Georgia kind of wins by about 14 here. So I have to take Georgia. But if I'm wrong on this one, it wouldn't hurt my feelings. That's all I'm going to say on that. So, all right. Virginia going into Cal. I'm going to take Virginia minus, what is it, 5.5? Yeah, 5.5. So the reason for that is Virginia, they look like a good team at time. I think they're better than average, that's for sure. I don't know if they're an excellent team, but I think they're a good to decently good team. California is just up and down, and I think it's going to be a touchdown game. I think Virginia wins by a touchdown, and so 5.5 doesn't seem like a lot to lay for that. So that's what I'm going to do. South Carolina going into Ole Miss. Ole Miss has kind of swayed me a little bit. I said I needed a statement game from them. They finally kind of gave it to me. It was like 2 half-statement games, and so I combined that and said, okay, that's fine. You've sold me. But with that being said, I've bet against South Carolina. I bet for South Carolina covering the spread like 3 times in the last 4 weeks and lost on all of them. And so for me, I got to go with Ole Miss. I'm not letting South Carolina burn me again. South Carolina's on the road. They don't play offense that well. I see this being like 31-10 or something like that. So, yeah, easy there. Interesting line here. Purdue going into Michigan. And Michigan, I know, is tough at home, but I'm going to take Purdue plus 21.5. Michigan, I think, is a decent team. I think they can run the ball very well. I'm not impressed with their quarterback this year. And for me, when I look at this game, I think, okay, yeah, Michigan wins by 14, by 10. I just don't see a blowout. Michigan hasn't blown out really anybody. And in fact, every game they've played has been kind of nitty-gritty and tough. And even some teams they should have clearly beaten by a lot, they only won by 3. They only won by 7. And so I just have a hard time believing with that run, ground, control the clock, control the game offense they have. I just don't think there's going to be that much time for teams to put up that many points. I mean, this has the making of a 17-10 game, so 21.5 just seems ridiculous. USC going into Nebraska. I am going to take USC minus the 4.5. Everyone just keeps telling me how good USC is. Oh, Nick, USC's so dynamic. Oh, they're just so amazing. Yeah, they've had, 2 or 3 games that aren't great, but they're just so incredible. I don't know if I quite buy that, but I do think that going into Nebraska is so up and down. I think that USC's offense can take care of that defense. I really do. So I think it's a touchdown game at minimum. 4.5 is easy to lay. This one right here is just complete disrespect. We'll see if I'm wrong, but I just can't fathom it. Georgia Tech going into North Carolina State. Georgia Tech minus 5.5. Guys, I've been betting Georgia Tech minus 20, minus 25, and they've covered it every single time. I mean, this is a darn good top 10 football team. I've had them in my top 10. And they're playing NC State, who I know is at home, and they're okay. 5.5. I don't bet real money anymore, on Hard Rock, but if I did, I would be smashing this one by far. Not even close. Oklahoma going into Tennessee. Tennessee, I bet on them. I have not had good success, unfortunately, because they're just so up and down. Oklahoma's kind of the same way. There was a moment a few weeks ago where I really bought into Oklahoma and said, oh, yeah, no, this is it. And then the last few games, ever since I bought in, I haven't been impressed. I just haven't. And so since the game is so close, since it's 2.5, I'm going to go ahead and just take Tennessee minus 2.5. They're at home. That seems like winning by a field goal is completely possible there. Cincinnati going to Utah. Now, listen, Utah is a solid team. I know Utah's at home. That's great. But Cincinnati has looked amazing. I bet on Cincinnati a few times over the last few weeks. And what I absolutely love is that they're getting 10.5 points. I mean, I'm going to take those. Absolutely, I am. I mean, I would have taken them probably if it was 5.5, I mean, so yeah, 10.5 is a no-brainer for me. That is my college picks for today. Sorry they came in so late. It's been a really busy couple weeks, Halloween, my birthday, kids and stuff. So sorry it's a little late, but here it is. I also have the NFL picks for tomorrow coming on the same one as this, so you can look out for that. It's probably going to drop shortly after this one does. I will see you again next week for the results of my picks, as well as our top 10s, our men among the boys, and all that great series you guys love. I'll see you soon.